Hi everyone, this is Connor Manuel. I just want to talk to you about applying textures in Photoshop today. So this is really important if you want to give your artwork a more sort of traditional look. Let me just turn up the volume a bit. All right. So imagine this is your artwork and you can see there's line art, there's a color layer, and of course the background layer. So this is perfect. This is when you've got some paint on a canvas and you want to put some texture over the paint or merge it with the paint so it gives it more traditional feel, a more organic look. All right, so here you can see I've also got a texture file open. So here we have the original artwork and then the texture. So there's a few techniques I want to go through. The first one, probably the easiest one, is where you select the texture, and you can do that with the select menu here, select all, or in this case it's Control or Command A, depending on whether you're using a Mac or a PC. Control A on a PC, Command A on a Mac. So let me go ahead and do that. And then the copy command or the copy feature is either Control C or Command C. So I've done that, and you can see that lives under the edit menu. Okay, all right, once you've copied the texture, you go to your file, and all you have to do is just make sure that you have the color layer selected, or the layer with the paint that you want to apply the texture selected, and then you simply paste, or you do it via the menu or Control or Command V. And you can see that the texture has been pasted into your layer palette, and it sits above the color layer, but below the line art. So the important thing for this technique is that the texture is on the layer above the painted shapes that you wish to apply it to. Now, all you have to do to apply the texture to the paint is hold down the Alt key on a PC or the Option key on a Mac. And then watch this, you move your mouse towards the halfway mark, so in between the two layers, and your cursor will change into a downward arrow. And then once you've got that cursor pointing down like that, you click once. And Photoshop will respond by recognizing that you want to put the texture inside the paint underneath. And then once it's there, you can bring down the opacity of the texture, and the lower the opacity, the more color seeps through. So you can kind of see that now. It's quite lovely. Yeah, so that's pretty good. Now, this only works if you hold down the Alt key or the Option key, and it only works if you want to apply it directly to the layer below, and it will apply it to all the painted areas or all the colored shapes in the layer below. Now, you're probably thinking, well, what if you just want to paint it on one specific part of the body? And that's a good question. So let's demonstrate that next. So I'll unlink the texture by holding the Alt or the Option key again, and then I just have to click in the same spot and the texture comes back out. And let me just bring the opacity back up to full. So that's okay if you just want to apply the texture to the whole artwork. But what happens if you just want to paint the texture or apply it to just a part of the artwork underneath? So this next technique, a little bit more complicated. It does involve the Alt key again or the Option key on a Mac. And this time what you do is hold down the Option key or the Alt key, and you go down below to the bottom of the palette, the layer palette, and look for this little symbol here. It looks like a Japanese flag. So if you click on that, you get this black mask. And the way this works is whatever you paint in the black mask area with white paint, will reveal the texture. And I'll just show you crudely how it works. So let's go to the brush tool. It doesn't matter what brush you choose. It does matter what opacity you've got. So if it's on full, 100% opacity, and I'll make my brush a bit smaller, watch what happens when I start painting white. Oh, what's happening here? Okay. If I start painting white in this black mask area, it reveals that texture. Now I'm just going to undo that. Control Z. Better go back a few times. All right. Now, this is what happens when you apply it with the opacity turned down. And I'll make the brush a bit smaller. So you can see, you can apply it. Oops, sorry. Let me just get rid of that. You can apply it in thin washes. It's like painting in the real world. You can water down the paint, but this is applying the texture with the opacity turned down to about 12%, and you can control how much texture comes on. Now, you're probably wondering, well, that's great, Con, but what if you want to apply the texture to the actual character, to this cute little monster? Well, now it gets a little bit more complicated. So let me just go back to this mask and make it all black again. All right. Now, if you want to apply the texture to the body itself, this is what I would do. You select the magic wand, make sure you've got sample all layers ticked, right? Very important. And then Photoshop, with that ticked, Photoshop will know what part of the body you want to select just by the fact that you simply click any part of the body. And you can see that Photoshop response was saying, yep, I'll select that part. And if you want to select more than one area, you can hold down the Shift key. So let's try this. In fact, let's do the stripes. Hold down the Shift key and you can pick up more area. So I guess the obvious thing we'll do the head. I'll select the head with the magic wand. Notice that I'm still on the black mask. That's still selected. So just make sure that the black mask is selected. I've selected the head. And now here's the big difference. Go back to your brush tool and look at that. You can apply the brush texture, or you can paint the texture on in washes of opacity. So the more brush strokes, the more texture is revealed. So that's pretty good. The other thing you can do, of course, is you can play around with layer effects. So color burn gives you a different look to linear burn. And yeah, these are all different layer effects, and just it changes the look of the texture as opposed to leaving it on normal. So quite a few things to play around with. All right, well, hopefully that makes sense. Let me show you the last technique. For this, I'm going to get rid of the layer that I've just used. I'm just going to delete it. Yep, get rid of it. And remember, I've actually still got a copy of the texture in the clipboard because I copied it from before. So Photoshop remembers the last thing I copied. And I'll just deselect the head. Let's choose another body part. Let's now take the magic wand and I'll select the body. And in fact, just for fun, let me just hold down the Shift key and click on these darker red bands. So there's two of them. So now I have selected with my magic wand those two areas. And notice that I've got the color layer selected. This technique is called paste into. And basically, you're asking Photoshop to paste the texture that's in the clipboard, the one you copied earlier, into the selected areas. Now, all you do is select the areas, go to Edit, go to Paste Special, and then here it is, Paste Into. And whammo, you now have the texture pasted into that selected area. And once again, you can change the layer effect to what you want, or you can change the opacity so you get a bit of color coming through as well. And that's effectively the paste into technique. So 3 different ways of applying texture. Practice this. Hopefully it all makes sense. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Okay, all the best. I'll see you later on. Let me just quit the Zoom recording.